So, our next speaker is Andrew Lezala. I think he might be a household name, as CEO of Metro Trains Melbourne. As you probably all know, Metro Trains took over they won the contract from the state to run the Melbourne train service, taking over from former operator Connex in December 2009. Some 13 months ago, it probably feels like 13 years, Andrew. But he always looks cheerful and he's always positive, notwithstanding that he's taken the brunt of a lot of issues for the government as well. So Andrew is well experienced for that role because he was former CEO of Metronet Rail in the United Kingdom. He's personally very strongly committed to improving rail services to serve Melbourne, and I think he's going to tell you about that commitment that he has and his organisation has. So please welcome Andrew Lezala to speak on Metro Rail Services for Sustainable Cities.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, Jackie, for the opportunity for that introduction and the opportunity to speak at this forum. I'm going to talk about some of the things that are affecting us within Metro, but also about the context for Melbourne. Melbourne's a great city, and I was delighted to come back here and work here because I love it. And it consistently rates as one of the world's best cities because it's got a rich cultural diversity and it's got many different facets in terms of economic strengths and in finance, in manufacturing, education, etc. It's such a nice city that everybody wants to come and live here. And because the city is growing at 1,200 to 1,300 people a week, it drives a massive demand for transport. But it's that 1,300 people coming to live here every week that also drives economic growth and sustainability from an economic point of view. And this is really important. So we take our job in the transport business here very, very seriously indeed, because if we fail in our task going forward, then there's no guarantee that Melbourne's prosperity will continue. And there's no guarantee that it will continue to be one of the most livable cities. So we take our responsibilities very seriously. Not to overstate our importance, but we take it very seriously. Now, just as an aside, and picking up on what Brian and Marcus have said, I totally agree with where they're coming from, really. And I'm going to talk about sort of the next 10 years. But because our franchise is over that period, but if you look 100 years ahead, Melbourne is most likely will have a complete underground railway network, a metro network, at least within a 10-kilometre radius of the centre of the city. And I don't think many people would argue with that. And we've got to start somewhere with that. Now, I don't know if any of you have been to Shanghai. I had the privilege of working in China for 4 years in the metros business, which was a great place to be because they were building a lot. And in '94, when I went there, I was part of commissioning Shanghai Line 1. And we supplied Shanghai Line 2 rolling stock as well. By the time I left, 5 railways were under construction. And they opened one complete metro line. And these are not small lines, they're very big. One line a year ever since. And they did exactly what Marcus said. They looked to the future. They did a future-making approach. They said, our city is going to look like this in 20 years' time. We better get on and build it. And they started with the arterial railways. And that city, China has just been declared the second biggest economy in the world, overtaking Japan. And it's predicted in 10 years it will overtake the States. And that city is, as Deng Xiaoping called it, the head of the dragon being the Yangtze. And that will become the economic centre of the world. And when it's traced back, it'll be because they did what they did in the early 90s. And I would appeal to anybody, whether it be state, federal, local, whatever, we've got to get our act together and get building. So, this is a great city. Our network is a big network, actually. That's the map of the railway, you know that? It's 15 lines. It's built like a spider. It's got a little loop body and 15 legs. And therein lies a challenge. And to make it a network, we need a spider's web made up of buses and trams and integration. Integration on a frequency basis, not on a timetabling basis, because that's too hard. We've got 186 car trains, 212 railway stations, 372 route kilometres, about 830 kilometres of actual track. We do 2,200 services every day, every weekday, and with our 3,900 employees, we carry over 400,000 people a day on about just under 800,000 trips. So it's a large network by any standards, and just to illustrate that, here's a comparison to France, to Paris, to Hong Kong and to London. And you can see that the number of lines is comparable, the number of stations is comparable, the number of route kilometres is comparable. But look at the usage. Jump to the bottom line there, ridership. 10% of our population uses the trains on a regular basis, compared to 40–50% in those other cities. And this is an indication that really public transport in this city is in its infancy. And it needs to step up and become at least double in terms of usage if we're going to keep the city sustainable and stop the roads completely clogging up as those 1,200 people come here to live every week. And that's I don't know if you can read that, I probably can't at the back, but basically it's a chart that shows the growth that happened up to 2009 and the prediction up to 2020. Now you can argue, is it exactly that? Is it a bit less? Is it a bit more? But last year we had nearly 5% growth. And next year we'll probably have another 5 or 6% growth. So we're now carrying 222 million people a year. In 1996 it carried 107 million people a year. And we're planning that in 10 years' time it's able to carry 370 million people a year. So we have to equip it in terms of its capacity to do that. Just to look at it from an environmental point of view, on a scale of good to bad, with short-term jets, regional jets being the worst, cars being pretty bad, bus being pretty good, train being very good, cycling being excellent, we need to make sure that we're recognising the impact on the environment that these transport modes have and help that drive the economic arguments towards more investment in sustainable transport. So nobody's going to use a system that's broken and is considered unreliable. So over the last 10 years, as this major growth's occurred, there's been an inverse impact, a directly inverse impact on the reliability of the network, and not only the reliability but the variability of the service. And so if you measure the time to 1 minute on the Pakenham line in 2000, there were about 55–60% of trains ran within 1 minute. There weren't as many trains, about half the number of trains actually, but they ran to 1 minute. Today, in a peak, you're lucky if it's 20%. And that degradation in the on-time performance of the railway needs to be reversed. Because if we don't perform at world-class standards in the 90% on time, people won't use it unless they must. And that's not a good situation. We want people to want to get out the cars, to get on a public transport network that's connected, reliable, with great information in their pocket, on their iPhone or whatever. That's what we have to take it to. So for us in the metro business, we've got to make these assets so they don't fail. And we're investing heavily in asset improvement and reliability growth. That's of infrastructure and trains. We've got to have timetables that work, and you'll have seen a lot in the press about timetable changes. We're going to keep making them, and they're going to be quite radical, because we have to get the system to be metronomic. Metros are metropolitan, yes, but they have to be metronomic. It has to work with simple frequencies, regular frequencies, so that, and they have to be, lines have to be separated, so that if one line's late, it doesn't make the other lines late. So the infrastructure changes we're making, separating all of that out. And we're building timetables where we can, clock face, so they're simple to remember, 10-minute frequencies where we can, as a minimum, and with simple stopping patterns, so that the railway is easy to manage and doesn't trip itself up. And then an every minute counts mentality. This is about everybody, all of my staff wanting to keep the thing on time, but also all of our customers. Customer behaviour is part of this. Dwell times at stations has to be managed. So when the doors are shutting, we need people to say, you're not getting on. Because that's what happens in places like Hong Kong, where they run to 99.6% on time. It's very good there that people are managed on platforms. And I'm afraid the disciplines of every minute counts applies to everybody, and we need to develop that approach in the nicest possible way. In terms of gearing up for growth, somebody made a very good decision before our time, before my time here, to order new trains. They saw the growth coming and they ordered new trains, and it takes a few years to get them. But 38 are on the way. We've got 18 in service of those, and they'll keep coming over the next year. That's great. From May, when we make the May timetable change, over 1,000 new services, nearly 1,100 new services will have been introduced since we took over in December 2009, bringing it to 14,000 services a week. We've got an extension to South Morang, we've got electrification to Sunbury. These are very good projects that will expand the network. We've invested in the first 12 months nearly $600 million in infrastructure improvements, and we're continuing with that. And also in the rolling stock reliability. We're lucky that the Comenge trains, which is the biggest fleet here, is very similar, technically, to the Hong Kong fleet. Now, our major shareholder is MTR Hong Kong. And so all the things they did to make theirs the most reliable trains in the world can be applied to ours, which are some of the most unreliable trains in the world. And we've doubled the reliability of those trains in the last 12 months. And we're only halfway through the modification to the fleet, so that will continue to grow. In terms of energy usage, we're about second biggest user in the state. We use 400 gigawatt hours of energy. And most of that, 88% of it, is down to traction power. So we have to, in our strategic plan going forward, address energy consumption and energy regeneration. So what we're looking to do, what we will do in the future, is we're looking to recover the braking energy from trains. This is a very good thing about having electric trains. If you use the electric motors in reverse, if you like, to brake the train, you generate electricity. And if you can store it or pump it back into the grid, you can get 20% of your energy usage out. And we have to do that. So 400 gigawatt hours is about 70,000 dwellings. So we can save about 14,000 dwellings worth of electricity if we develop this network so that it has energy storage or regeneration. About half the trains are already equipped to be able to do it, and the other half need modifying. And then the system needs modifying to be able to receive it. So in summary, we're here really to develop the railway so it can help Melbourne stay right up there as the best city in the world, and to remain sustainable, and to become sustainable perhaps. And we're improving the reliability of the railway, we're increasing the available capacity in the railway. We want to entice more people out of cars onto trains because it works, because it's reliable, because it's safe, and because it's connected. And we're going to use technology to develop our own environmental credentials, if you like, and maintain it as the most effective and energy efficient mode. So, as I say, we take this very seriously. We've got an enormous amount of effort going on to improve it. It does take a bit of time, and it takes a lot of effort, but we're starting to see the results of our first year's labours, and we'll continue to do that. And thank you very much.